people distract your service dog? What do you do when people come up and they talk to your service dog or touch your service dog or talk to you and interrupt your service dog that way? What do you do? Well, about that, this is a recording of a live stream with Candy the Wee Service Dog. I have been a handler for 2 different service dogs. One was a Husky mix who passed away, and then his successor dog is a smaller dog, a Labrador Retriever. Candy is a Chihuahua, so we get sometimes interrupted differently. We're going to be talking about that. This is a recording of the live stream. We went down some rabbit trails, and I have edited to take out some of those rabbit trails. But look, we're interested in hearing from you. So your questions, thoughts, suggestions, situations, you can put those down in the comment section below. We will do our best to answer them. Now, with that being said, let's get on into the video of the live stream. Hi, everybody. This is Gail. Welcome to my #BeBodacious channel. I have just come back from traveling and have noticed some differences in the way different areas respond to me and to my service dog Pipsie over here. So I thought, why not have a segment on how to deal with someone who distracts your service dog. You know, they're not supposed to. Those of us who are watching know that nobody is supposed to distract the service dog, but we all know that it happens. And I don't know if mine is going to actually be on the show, but you may see his tail or his nose pop up periodically. Now, I'm joined tonight. I have Laurel, which is Candy the Wee Service Dog. She's on here with me tonight. So, hi, Candy. I see your sweet face.
She's hiding my face. I'm around here somewhere. So, Mommy, somewhere she's going to let me there. Okay. All right, come here.
For those of you who don't know Laurel, I'm going to let Laurel introduce yourself. That way you guys can find out more about her.
Okay.
And her sweet little service dog, Candy. So, Laurel, here you go.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Laurel, and this is Candy. She was up here hogging the screen a minute ago. You can say hi, Candy. You're out of the screen again. There you go.
Hi, Candy.
There you go. She's hearing your voice, but she's not knowing where you're at. But anyways, I have multiple disabilities. I've had them for some of them had since I was a child, but most of them I've been having since I've been a grandma. I'm an artist. I do fine arts, and I also do fiber art. So, but Candy helps with several of my disabilities. I have 24 different disabilities disorders. So there's 24 of them. So Candy does tasks for 12 of them. 3 of them are potential serious health. Well, one particularly could be potential life-threatening. She was originally my emotional support, and then as things got worse with my disabilities, my mental health got worse, and so Candy started alerting on her own on my neuropathy and a couple other things. So I started task training her. Now, the other thing is, I didn't know when I first started out, I thought that you had to have, a dog trained through a program or an organization. And I found out from a friend that you can owner train. And so with a lot of friends I have 3 friends that are animal behaviorists and a couple that are trainers.
Laura, I'm getting your URL here.
Oh, okay, yes.
If you see me looking at this other screen, that's why.
On there, it goes through there. If they watch the one video on there, it shows I go through step by step of each of the 24 different disabilities that I have and which ones Candy helps with, which ones she doesn't help with. If they want to watch that, it's on there.
Oh, good. So in my travels, I've really noticed a lot of difference in how different areas are receptive to service dogs. And that really, really surprised me. When I went from an area that's kind of questionable, not that you can't have a problem anywhere else, okay? But in general, it was really nice to go from an area that's a little bit questionable on acceptance to one that was a lot more acceptance. And I think that the public, when they see a service dog in a vest, I think that their automatic jump is to assume that that service dog is really an ESA, which stands for emotional support animal.
Right.
And I kind of think that that sometimes makes them maybe less hesitant to jump in and pet the service dog.
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
I help educate some businesses too, like the local stores and banks and stuff in our area. Prime Minister said that a business has to, when somebody brings a dog in, as long as the dog is behaving, they have to assume it's a service dog, whether somebody's just bringing in their pet or whatever, or ESA. They cannot ask you that unless that animal is doing something that's not, that a service dog should not be doing, or as the ADA law says, that it's not apparent what that dog is supposed to be a service dog for. So they can't say, is that a dog needed for a service, as a service dog? And then you would say yes. And then when they ask you what tasks do they perform, they can't say, they can't expect you to say, oh, well, Candy jumps on. No, they need to know, like, medical alert,
Right.
light mobility, heavy mobility. That's where some businesses got confused and thought they could actually ask you, what does your dog do? Like, do they tap you? Do they bark or whatever? And they can't ask that. Right.
There are two questions that you can ask a service dog handler.
Right.
And that is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? And what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? That is straight off the ada.gov website. Be general, you can say medical alert, retrieval, allergy assistance if you want to, things like that. You can keep it general. Or you
Right.
can be specific if you choose to, and that's an individual choice. You don't have to go into great depth. Also,
Right.
you're not required to have any kind of identification saying that your dog is a service animal. So if you're thinking about registering by these companies that are like, send X number of dollars and register your
Right.
service dog right now, don't, because that's a waste of money. The law does not recognize that at all.
Right.
If you can tell real quick if somebody hesitates and they can't tell you what task their dog performs, that's a really good indicator that possibly you're talking to somebody who doesn't have a service dog at all.
Right.
For example, I went to the store and this individual had their quote service dog up in the buggy. Well, there's a big giant sign on the wall that says, don't put your dogs in the buggy. The dog wasn't behaving that great. So I went up and I asked him, and he says, yes, ma'am, it is a rescue dog. And I'm like, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if this is a service dog. And because it wasn't behaving. And he's like, well, it's a rescue dog. He can go wherever I go, and he can go where people are allowed because he's a rescue. And I'm like, sir, there's a huge difference between rescue and service dog. And I said, what task has it been trained to perform? And he's like, oh, it didn't have to be trained to perform any task. The dog just knows what to do. He just calms my anxiety. Now, I didn't have Pipsie, but if I had and the dog had been growling at Pipsie, then I would have asked to have had that individual removed.
You're right. Oh, and here's the thing about it, Gail. When I was talking about the Department of Justice, they were saying that you can, even if it is a legitimate service dog, if it is misbehaving, because they're animals, they're live creatures, they're going to have a bad day once in a while, that they can do and they can give you two choices. You can either take your dog out of the business, and sometimes they'll be nice and have an employee watch your dog while the dog is tied up outside while you're doing your little shopping, or you can take your dog home and you can come back. But they can ask a legitimate team to leave if Now, here's the thing is they have to give you a chance to get the dog under control. Now, Candy,
unless they're alerting. Now,
right, yes, and they are.
Service dogs rather will bark when they're alerting, and that's when a dog is doing its job that it's trained to do.
Right.
And I think people don't understand that either.
Right, and there's a different type of bark.
Okay,
but you know, when people ask, you talk about people asking a bunch of questions. 2 questions they kept asking me. Candy didn't look happy. No, she's focusing. She's happy. Believe me, when she sees me getting my scooter ready, she goes and jumps on. She's ready to go. She loves doing her job. And the other question was, does she really do something for you? You know, I mean, we're not talking about the business. We're just talking people in general. So I had a friend make a couple of sarcastic patches to put on her vest. Let me grab them real quick. Hold on. You go and talk and I'll grab them real quick because they are kind of cute.
But it has not happened to me. But I have talked to people who have had folks come up to them while their service dog was working and say, you know, gee, are you sure this is a service dog because he looks so glum? And you know, you can't go by that. There are dogs that just have that's just their expression, you know.
Well, like, and they're focusing on their work,
for example. And it's okay to just ignore the person or to say something like, my service dog is fine. Thank you for your concern. Just if you do respond, be nice, because that will help the next service dog team that this person runs across.
Well, here's the first patch. I can't always see where that camera is. There you go.
Okay. There you go.
So yes, I have a life. It's working for her. Because they think, well, does she even have a life? So that's one of them. The other one is, oops, again. I never can find this straight. Okay. No, I'm not spoiled. I work for her. So those are the 2 patches. She has one of those embroidery machines, and so she made these, and I can put them on her vest. But yeah, I got tired of people being nice.
People will still interrupt you.
Yeah.
And distract. And I guess I want to say something about what can happen when you distract a service dog. People just see this cute, adorable dog. So they'll come up and distract without thinking about it. I was at a store, Pipsie was focused, and boom, somebody calls, can I pet? He turns his head, he loses focus, lays down, and then I have to correct him to get him to help me with my bag. And here's the thing that I want people to understand. You're not just causing him to miss a cue at that moment. But when you interrupt and you distract a service dog, then for the next 15 minutes, couple of hours, couple of days, that service dog is looking for attention from most of the people.
Exactly.
So it's not just a one and done kind of thing. And think about it. Do you want to be interrupted at work?
Right.
Let's say you're working on a project that you've got to focus on, and somebody comes up to you and they want to talk about the ice machine not working or whatever. And you spend the next 10 minutes talking and flip that switch. Can you go back to your desk?
And like you were saying, then it takes, like if somebody does pet Candy like that, it takes you another 15 minutes before I can finish shopping because I got to get her back into focusing. Our one retired pastor that knows her, I mean, he's like family, but he ignores her because he knows then that's going to get her excited. But going back then, you were talking about people distracting. Remember when we went to IHOP and our waiter kept coming over there and distracting her? Now, thankfully, I was having a good day that day. If I would have been having problems with my blood pressure and that wouldn't have been good because she wouldn't have been focusing on it. It was like every time he came back. And so then every time he did.
If he brought something, he turned around and talked to her. And you handled that very well.
Right. But
Yeah, you have to
that
ask them several times, like, don't do this.
using more energy of your own, which a lot of times you don't have to reel him back into
Right.
focusing. Yeah. A lot of us have invisible disabilities where they don't like, oh, well, you don't look disabled. Well, what do you want me, to do? Like,
Yeah, and I've gotten that. Let's say I'm at a restaurant, his mobility harness won't fit under the table.
oh,
So when that happens, he has to lay in the floor next to me. And so sometimes people will come up, or they'll mutter as they go by me. Must be nice to have a dog with you all the time and whatever. It's sometimes I'll stop them and I'll say, well, you may not see this disability because I'm sitting down, but I'll sometimes give them like a good portion of my list. Seizures,
I
asthma, epilepsy. I mean,
well, you're
diabetes,
educating them, right? You're
mobility.
educating them, which is that's part of our job. We have to educate the public whether we like it or not. But yeah, with Candy, they'll say like, "Well, what can she do? She's just a little dog." And so then I will name a few things. They're like, "Oh wow, really?" I said, "Yeah, she." I've been in my doctor's office, and they'll do my vitals, and my appointments take up to an hour because of all my weird things going on in my body. But anyways, one particular time, she did my vitals, and about 30 minutes later, she even knows. She said, "Oh, Candy's getting up and learning you." And I said, "Yeah, I guess you." So there's different things she does for different months. Well, she says, "Let's check your vitals again." Well, my blood pressure was, I forget what it was, but what the biggest concern was my heart rate. It was up to like almost 200 beats a minute. I could have had,
Wow.
I could have, what do you call it? When a blood vessel burst. Yeah, I could have had that happen.
You've had
And
a
so
stroke.
they wouldn't let me go home. They checked every 20 minutes for about an hour before it had to go down. But Candy recognized that before my doctor, who was sitting right there examining me, and then she's writing things on the computer. The doctor was really impressed how Candy knew something was going on with my heart rate and blood pressure even before she recognized it, and that was her specialty. So, yeah, people with invisible disabilities, like I said, they don't always go like, "Oh, you look so healthy," or you have a lot of pain issues. You don't look sad.
Even at the doctor's office,
Yeah,
don't interfere with the service dog. Now,
right,
you can ask, especially
right,
if you're at the doctor's office, is it okay if I pet or talk to your dog? And I
right.
actually will sometimes let the doctor's
Yeah,
office staff touch Pipsy
yeah,
after we're
yeah,
finished with the exam because
yeah,
I want Pipsy to know that medical staff are okay. I will, in that case, let them pet my dog. And I
yeah,
think for us handlers, there's a lot of different ways to handle the situation. Um, Sometimes it's as simple as you're walking in a store and somebody says, "Oh my gosh, is that a service dog? I've never seen one that breed," or
right,
"They're
yeah,
so smart," and you just go, I'll just go, "Yes, he's a service dog. He's a big help," and just keep on going.
yeah.
Because just to kind of nicely remind him that he's working and he's a big help. How do you handle that, Candy?
Well, that's what I said. Most of the time, if I'm really got to get things done and I don't have time to shop, I said, "Well, I don't have time yet, but here's one of our cards. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube, and you can find all about." And then I just keep rolling along on my scooter. Yeah, and then the other times, like I can, have a little bit of a conversation and explain. If I'm up to it, I will educate. And unlike you, I don't mind sharing. It just depends the situation, how you're feeling, and that. Yeah. Well, see, that's how I got Candy's business cards. It not only helps with our business, but they can go online and see, it's on Facebook and YouTube and all the stuff that I do on the educational part. But with Candy, the unique thing of her being small, I've had people literally snatch candy off my lap on my scooter, they'll come behind me and grab her, and they'll be
She's
shaking her,
little.
like, yeah. But I'm going like, you don't know that dog could I mean, I know she wouldn't, but they didn't know that. I said, how can you just grab somebody's dog and you're taking a risk of getting bit because you don't know that animal? Yeah.
Right. Have you
Yeah.
ever had to have the police called because somebody was interfering?
I told you what happened and the manager was telling me I had to have, a certificate of registration. Kindly told her the ADA law. She goes, I know the ADA. She was just really arrogant. And then she goes, well, why doesn't she have a service harness? Because it was a really hot summer, and I had one of those mesh harnesses that you would see on a cat, because she was younger and smaller then. And she goes, how come she doesn't have a service dog harness? I said, it's called working them naked. Oh, I never heard of that. And then some smart guy, some customer, said, oh, I have a service dog and I have papers on my dog and all that. And I never take him out without his harness on. I didn't want to argue with it. But she was getting other customers to, you know, gang up on me. I felt really threatened. So I left and I went about a block away and I called UDF headquarters, and she said, well, what street was the one I went to? And so they said, well, you know what? We actually have a district manager in the area, or no, regional manager, and he'll be there in a few minutes. And she said, you just go on your way and you won't have to have an experience like that again. Well, and it is whatever business, every business owner and the managers all need to know, by law have to know the ADA law, and if they don't, the Department of Justice can write them up. Did you know that?
I complained to the Department of Justice, and the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, had to write their entire service dog policy again to be in compliance with federal law. So the Department
Good.
of Justice has some teeth.
I
And
think I do remember that.
yeah,
I
it was,
do remember that incident when you had that incident, Gail. I do remember that.
and I've got a video on it.
Yes.
So, but
Can you repost it again sometime?
oh yeah, I can share the link.
Yeah, because I remember that. But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes whatever. And like I said, I really felt physically threatened at that moment. But I mean, it didn't have to go to that point. And like I said, I didn't even go in there to get what I went in there to get. I meant to go in there and get myself a milkshake because it was so hot that day. But yeah. So after that, I started educating businesses. But like I said, uh, by law, businesses are supposed to know the ADA law, and
Finding it is as easy as going to ada.gov. I've got it pulled up here on
yes.
the website. One time I had a situation in New Mexico on this last trip. I was at a national wildlife refuge, and I went in with my service dog. He's in his harness, and I'll tell you, you cannot, wait a minute. If it's obvious what a person's disability is, you can't ask them. It's like,
Right.
it's obvious, it's obvious. And in this case, it's pretty obvious. And
Right.
I went in, and this woman was like, she yelled at me from like the time I got into the door.
Oh wow.
She's
Okay.
yelling at me from the desk saying, get that pet out of here. And I just ignored her.
Well,
And she's like, get the pet out. You can't have that in here. It's a pet. I was like, what? And she's like, pets aren't allowed. And I said, okay, if I see a pet, I'll let him know. And she's like, stop right there. You can't come in. And I'm like, ma'am, this is a service dog. And she's like, no, it's a pet. And I'm sitting there, I've got my leg brace on, I've got him in the harness, and I'm like, you know what? This is a service dog. He is federally protected. He can be in here. He could be with me because we were in the visitor center. It's not a situation where there were animals around or anything
right.
like that. In fact, there was 2 other couples in the visitor center at the time, and one was with me. So, you know, and she just, she took this brochure and she opened it up and she slammed it on the counter and she said, see, right here, it says pets aren't allowed. And I looked at it and I said, see, it says right here, service dogs are allowed. And I said, are you not going to allow me in? And she's like, no, I'm not. And I was like, okay, well then in that case, what we need to do is we need to call the police and get the officers down here so we can document that we have a denial of access, that you are actually denying a federally protected service dog, and we can get the police down here. And she said something about, no, it's I'm on federal property and it's the ranger. And I was like, I don't care. You can call him or I can call him. One of us can call the police. And I said, because if you're going to deny me, I said, that's the next step. Right. And she was like, she just went over to around the counter and picked up the phone and she called the park ranger and she was ready to have me kicked out. And I was there with my phone in my hand. I was ready to call the police and get this documented. Well, the ranger came in like 30 seconds, it seemed like, very, very quickly. And I just went ahead and I was just going through. I went over to the gift shop. I wanted to pick something up, find a present for a friend. Mm-hmm. And so I was just kind of ignoring this volunteer and letting her do her own thing. And the ranger came over and she's like, hi, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm doing okay today. Thank you for asking. And she's like, if there's anything we can help you with, let us know. And I'm like, okay. But she never apologized, but she also never said leave. I think the volunteer that was yelling at me got the very clear message. And I hate to call the police and get the denial documented, but I will. But I always try to be nice first.
Well, I do too. There was an incident in my apartment building where they used to allow pets in this one program room, not in the room where they served food, but in this one like little activity area. Well, people took advantage with their pets, so it said no animals in here beyond this point. Well, they kept sticking notes under my door saying I could be evicted because I'm not in compliance with the rules of the building. I said, Candy is a service dog. Well, I called HUD, and then HUD gave me their representative. So that it's a Department of Justice that works with HUD. I called HUD, and so we filled out the reasonable accommodation. Well, they were dragging on and weeks were going by, and they kept sticking those notes under my door. So finally, I called back because I think they wanted me to call every 10 days or whatever. So this is what the Department of Justice.
The law.
Well, this Department of Justice lady told me this. She said, tell them this. Say we're any day we could be coming down, which was true. So this was at 4, like about 15 minutes before they were closing up the office downstairs. And I politely said that I talked with the Department of Justice person that works with HUD, and they said they're coming down any day now to investigate. You denying my civil rights. So this was like 4:30 in the afternoon, okay? Well, office doesn't open until 8:30 in the morning, and I happened to be taking Candy out about 7:45 in the morning. Well, the manager came in and she says, corporate is going to comply with your reasonable accommodation. But then that wasn't the end of it, because then they were complying with letting me be there. But then residents were going, well, how come she's taking her dog in there? And so everybody was mad at me. I said, it's a service dog. I have a right to bring just like if I brought my scooter or whatever in there. But so because they didn't explain it to the residents, and then I had employees yelling at me, I contacted my friend that works up in Columbus. She works with legislation. She called, all the employees that were harassing me had to apologize to me. They had to tell all the residents that I have the right to bring Candy in because she's a service dog, not because I think I'm better than other people. And don't you know they did? They went from yelling and some of them were swearing at me, some of the employees, So, oh, Candy's so sweet. Oh, she's so cute. Like I said, they straightened everybody out. But yeah, so I mean, I like you. I like to get along. But when you're invading my civil rights, I have to put my foot down. And then you know what?
And sometimes it's, I went into a store on this last trip and very, very busy place. And I'd gotten into the door and a woman said, "Hey, we don't allow pets." On his harness, it says service dog on the bag that's attached to his harness. She saw the harness and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." She also saw my leg brace at that point, and it was just as easy as just not even saying a word, just pointing to it. And then she was like, "I'm sorry." She was sincere, and we need to allow that mistakes do happen. But Laurel, I want to thank you for being on.
But yeah, thank you for letting me be on with you today.
Thank you all for watching. I want to give a huge thank you to Candy, the Wee Service Dog, for hanging out with us this evening. And remember, we are always about the hashtag Be Bodacious, which means you're not going to let life get in the way of living. Now, we do these live streams at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sometimes it's just chit chat. And I have some travel, lifestyle, and service dog videos out at various times during the week. Come join us. Follow us on social media. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Bye.